Hey guys, this is Mitch with Fine Point CGI, and today we're going to talk about how to create a scalable door key system inside of Godot. So we are going to talk about how to create a key that follows the player and has a specific unique identifier. We're going to talk about how to create a door that handles that specific unique identifier, and we're going to go ahead and add in some code inside of the player so that way they can house multiple keys. So that's what I have in store for you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of planning. Generally, I don't do this on recording. I do usually do this by myself, right, off screen, but I thought it would be cool to kind of show you guys, especially with some people asking about planning your code beforehand. I thought this would be useful. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a door that's scalable, right? So we are going to need a door class here. So we'll go ahead and drag this in and we'll just say door, right? And the door is going to have to be opened. It's going to have to check keys, right? And it's probably going to need to have some animation. And the key itself, right, is probably going to need to follow the player, I imagine. And it's probably going to need to be able to house some kind of unique identifier. And it's probably going to need to handle player collision. So we'll probably need that as well. So how is this going to work? Well, first, let's take a look at our key section here, right? So we'll say, hey, what does a key need to do? So let's say player collides with key, right? And it's going to need to come down here and follow player, right? So it's probably going to do that by getting player position minus my position, right? So player collides with the key, it's going to follow the player, right? It's going to get the player's position minus my position, and then it's going to move, right? And it's probably going to bounce between these two states here, right? It's probably just going to go like this, and it's probably going to bounce. Go here, and then it's probably going to bounce between these two positions like this. So that's probably what's going to go on with the key. Now, with the door, what the door is going to have is the player is going to collide with it. And what's going to happen is the door is going to check, does the player have a key? And if the player does it match up with what I'm looking for? So we're going to say, hey, does player have the key I'm looking for? Right? And then it's going to go ahead and remove the key the player has. Oops. And then it's going to go ahead and open up, right? It's going to probably play that animation. So we can drag this down, and drag this down, right? And if the key doesn't have what the player is looking for, then it's going to probably do nothing, right? So actually, I'll just go ahead and grab an end state. Or, let me see, end. There we are. We'll go ahead and grab an end state. We'll just put it right here, and we'll say, okay, now the door's been open, it's going to end. And if the player doesn't have the key that we're looking for, or it doesn't have keys, we'll go ahead and just end, right? We're not going to do anything. We're also going to need a way to delete the key. So what we can do is remove the key. This is probably going to delete the key, right? So we can just drag this in and just say delete key, right? So delete key object from tree. We'll just drag this down and we'll drag this up and we'll go ahead and get rid of this open door animation. There we go. So that's pretty much all we're gonna need, I think. Oh, and I think we'll need to modify the player, but we don't really have a player section here, but we're gonna need to modify the player so that they can have a list of keys, which makes sense. So I think, yeah, I think that's pretty much what we need. So let's go ahead and get started coding. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and make our key. So what we can do is we can go ahead and go up to our game manager, right click, add in a child node, and let's add in a node 2D. And now that we have our little node 2D here, let's go ahead and rename it and call it key. Simple enough. And let's go ahead and right click, add in a child node, add in a sprite. And let's go ahead and for our sprite, let's go into our Platform Metrovania asset pack or whatever asset you want it to be. Miscellaneous sprites, we're going to scroll down and go to orb here. So we'll go ahead and fetch this, drop it in as our texture. And if we focus in on that by hitting F, we can see there's our little orb. And you can see that our orb is a little compressed here. So if we go into import and change this to uncompressed and then re-import it, that didn't work. So we're going to go ahead and do 2D pixels and import it. And there we go. I think there was something, is it lossless? Oh, it's lossless that I was thinking of, not uncompressed. So there we are. And now it's got a nice 2D aesthetic that we're looking for. And then we need to have some kind of collision, right? So we need to tell the key that the player has collided with it so they can pick up the key, right? So what we can do is we can right click, add in a child node and put in an area 2D. And then inside of that area 2D, we need to add collision. So we'll add our collision shape here, 2D, and every collision shape 2D needs a shape. So if we come over here, we can click on empty and change it to a new circle shape. And that'll give us a collision. We can make this as big as we want, but I think the default size is a pretty good size. Now that we have all of this set up, we can right click our key and we can go ahead and make it into its own scene. So let's save branch as scene, click on that and call it key TSCN and hit enter. Perfect. So we basically have everything that we need to create this key. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and open up that key scene. So if I minimize those two, come down here and let's go ahead and grab our key.tscn. Now this project is getting a little bit cluttered, so we might have to do a little cleanup, but let's go ahead and double click on that key. Let's right click on our key and attach a script, and let's go ahead and attach a key.cs script. So go ahead and hit create, and it's going to go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, providing that Visual Studio Code is not feeling unhappy today, which in my case, it seems like it is. So I'm going to manually open Visual Studio Code, and let's navigate to my project here. So open folder. Okay, so now that we're inside of Visual Studio Code, what we need to do is we need to figure out what exactly we want to do with this key. So the first thing is the key needs to follow the player, right? We don't want a key that doesn't follow the player because then it's basically useless, right? We need a key that when the player enters it, right, enters its collision area, it will start following the player because we need to notify it, right? And we need to have the key have a unique identifier that we can use to keep track of what door that key opens, because not all keys will open all doors, right? Now, I know you could use grouping to do this, but I prefer to do it the code way. To me, it's a little faster, and we're not interacting with the Godot system as much. We're more interacting with C#, which generally is faster. So what I'll do is first we'll come up here and we'll say, hey, we need to move, right? So private vector2 velocity is equal to a new vector2. And we'll go ahead and initially say that that vector 2 is 0, 0. And then we need to determine if we're following the player. So we'll say private bool following player. And currently we're not following the player, and bool's default to false. So we're good there. And then we need to determine if we're picked up, right? Because we don't want to allow the player to pick up multiple versions of this key off the same key, right? So we have to say, and we'll say private bool picked up, right? So basically we're saying, hey, are we following the player? Are we picked up? And the last one that we need is what door we're going to open. So we'll make that public. So we'll say public string door to open. And we'll go ahead and set that to nothing. And we're going to need to export that. And the reason why we want to export this is so that way when we instance a key into our scene, or if we place a key into our scene, we can go ahead and just set whatever door we want to be open. We could just type in whatever we want and it'll go ahead and open that specific door. Now, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and say, hey, when the player enters here, let's go ahead and follow the player, right? So we'll come down here and we will need to set up kind of like a collision system, right? So if we come into Godot, we go to our area 2D, we go to our node, and we make sure we're on our signals here. And we say, hey, on bodied entered. Let's go ahead and connect that. Let's copy this little receiver method. And you can see that we are linking it to our key. So that's perfect. And go ahead and hit connect. And now if we go back into Godot, we can type private void on bodied entered, and we can pass in an object here. We'll say body. Now from here, we can say, hey, first, are we picked up? Right? So if we're not picked up, then we're going to want to do some additional checking here. Okay, so we can say, okay, we're not picked up. If body player controller, then we want to go ahead and do the rest, right? So we want to say, hey, following player is equal to true, right? Because we want to follow the player. Now, from here, what else can we do? Well, we want to say that we're picked up for one. And now from here, we want to follow the player, right? So let's go and create some following code. Now, I don't want to do process. I want to do physics process. I want everything to be handled on the physics engine instead. I prefer it when it's used more on that versus process, which is kind of set to your frame rate, if that makes sense. Whereas physics process is a very set time frame, if that makes sense. So we'll say is public override, because we're overriding the physics process function, void underscore physics process. Then we want to say, all right, if we are following player, then we want to go to the player, right? So we'll say velocity is equal to GameManager.player dot global position minus my own global position. Now, the reason why we do this, and it's mad at me. Oops, equals, not equal. Now, the reason why we want to do this is what we're doing is we're saying, hey, GameManager.player.global position. So get the position of the player, get the position of my key, and then subtract the two. So that way we can say how far away are we from the player, and then we can move towards the player, right? So what we can do now is we can say, okay, now move to the player. So we can say move and slide velocity multiplied by 5f comma vector2 dot up. And what that's going to do is it's going to say, all right, So we needed to move our distance away times 5. So because the distance away can be very great or the distance away can be very small. And if it's very small, we don't want it to take forever to follow the player, right? I just want it to follow the player quickly, but not too quickly, if that makes sense. Now we do have a quick little move and slide does not exist in current context. And my guess is, oh, it's because this is a node 2D. Our key needs to be a kinematic 2D. So let's go ahead and change that. So right click our key, come to change type and type kinematic 2D. That's my fault. So go ahead and change that. And you'll see that it gets mad at us because we have no shape to collide. I mean, really, we don't need one necessarily. So I'm not going to worry about that for right now, but we'll go ahead and hit Control S. We'll go back to our key and change this to kinematic body 2D, and that should give us the move and slide. There we go. So now what we can do is we can test this and see if this works. It should, in theory. So let's go ahead and find out. So if we go back to our test scene, let's grab our key and kind of move it down here somewhere. So that way the player can jump and grab it. So if we run over there, providing that it actually compiles, sweet. We jump, boost, and you can see that nothing seems to work. Now the question is, why? Are we getting our collision is what I'm wondering. Is getting my first guess. Let's see. I wonder if it's not detecting if body is player controller. Let's try this first. So what I'm going to do is throw a breakpoint here, and I'm going to do a run and debug, and we're going to play that in editor. Let's take a look at what's going on under the hood a little bit. All right, so we run over here, we jump, teleport, and it's just straight up not detecting our collision. Let me see. What did I miss? I must have missed something. Oh, it's not connected. Could have sworn we connected it. All right, so let's go ahead and connect it. And let's try that again. This time it should, in theory, work. So we'll, whoops. And there you go. Now the key is following. Now you can see that it's following the player and it's getting directly on top of the player. I don't know if I like that. Right? And you can see the farther the player gets away, the faster that key moves. That's part of the reason why I wanted it to be this way, was so that that key would follow the player. When they get really far away, it would speed right up and catch up to them, which is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So awesome. Now, I don't like how this is directly on top of the player, so let's do a little bit of finagling and make it look pretty good. So we're going to go to our player. So players, test scene, and then let's go ahead and move over to our player. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a follow location for our player. So we'll go ahead and right click, add in a child node, and put in a position 2D. And we'll just kind of drag, that out. It's not going to let me. So go here. Let me go to transform. And click on position 2D, transform, pull this back some, we'll say about here. I think here would be a good spot for a key to be floating, right? And we will call this key follow location. I'm going to go ahead and copy that so I have that. And then I'm going to go ahead and save my player. We're going to go back into our key here, and we are going to say, instead of looking for the player.global position, we'll say .get node, and we will go ahead and grab a position 2D, and we're going to go ahead and grab that .global position. And let's see if that is better. So we're going to come over here, we'll jump, we'll grab the key. You can see it's now following the player where we expect. But if we hit to the right, you can see that it's still following the player, but in the complete wrong direction, which isn't great. So what we can do is we can either move this through code, right, to go to this side, or we can just go ahead and create a second node. And I think I'm going to go ahead and create a second node. So we'll just Control D. We'll go ahead and grab this, providing it lets me. It looks like it's not going to. So go ahead and grab this. We will go ahead and make this positive 10 instead of negative 10. And that's just going to throw it to the exact opposite. And we will call this key follow location right. And we're going to do the same thing here, rename this, but to left. And we need to know if the player is either facing one direction or the other. And the easiest way to know that is via their flip value, right? Via their sprite, animated sprite flip H value, right? So they can turn left or right. So what we can do is we can come over here, we can go into our key, and we can say, hey, if following player and if game manager.player.get node, right? Because we're going to grab a node. We're going to grab that animated sprite. Okay. And we are going to go ahead and say animated sprite dot flip H, right? Because we want to see if it's flipped or not. And if it's not, then we're just going to go ahead and grab that velocity right here. But if it is, then we're going to go ahead and grab the exact same velocity, but from the right side. So we'll go here, key follow location. I'm going to guess left, and I'm going to guess right and see if I'm correct. So let's go ahead and save that, and we'll go ahead and run it, and let's see what happens. All right, so we run over here, we grab our key, we tab, that follows correctly, we rotate, and there you go. Perfect. That looks really good, actually. That works really well. So the nice thing is if you were to have, let's say, an item or something like that that you want to follow the player, you could definitely put that here. And honestly, we could put it so that this would be like an inventory or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. The player could just have a little thing floating, maybe. But that might be something for the future for us to kind of think about, right? Maybe we could make that happen, right? So now that we have that working, now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and set up our... So once the player picks up the key, we need to tell the player that they have a key, right? So what we can do is we can go into our player controller here, and we need to create a list of keys, because what if they have multiple keys? What if they have 20 keys, right? We don't know. So we'll come down here and we'll say public list, and I'm not getting auto completion, which leads me to believe that I am missing. Yep. So if we go to using system.collections.generic, which is a generic systems collection library, right? We can come down here and continue our little list here. So list, there we are, of keys. So keys is equal to a new list of keys. There we are. All right, so basically once the player gets initialized, they're going to go ahead and have those keys, and it's going to be an empty list. Now, once the player picks up a key, we need to tell the player that they now have this key. So what we can do is we can go back to our key and say, hey, when the player enters, and actually we could probably keep that, we can say, hey, when the player picks up the key, we need to add it. So we'll say game manager dot player dot keys dot add this, and then we will semicolon. And what that's going to do is that's going to go ahead and add to the game manager the player's keys. So now the player has a reference to that key, if that makes sense. So now that the player has a reference to that key, we need to go ahead and make our door. So what we can do is we can come back into Godot. We can go to our player test scene. We can come over here and go ahead and click on our tile map here. And let's just go ahead and add in a little angle here. Come over here, draw this out, let's say, and then let's flip this. I believe that's S. And then we'll pull this out as well. And then we need to go ahead and make a door. So I don't know if I have a door here. So let's see. Do we have a door? Door. Oh, door.png. Is that a cool door? Oh, that's not quite the door I'm looking for. Let's see. Do we have a strange door closed? That looks like a good one. See, look at that. That's a cool one. So what's this? Oh, fancy, fancy. So what we can do is we can come over here. We can right click, add in a child node, a node 2D, and we can go ahead and rename it. So if we just click on it, door, we can right click, add in another child node here, and we can add in a static body because it's an object that's not going to be moving. Well, I mean, it's going to be moving, but it's not really good. It's a door, so it's not going to be moving a lot. So we can say static body 2D, and then we can go ahead and right click on that. It's going to need a collision shape, so we're going to go ahead and add in a collision shape 2D. If we focus in on that door, you can see it's a beautiful door of emptiness. And we can add in a cube rectangular shape. And now we need a sprite for this door to look, for it to look like a door. So we're going to go ahead and right click, add in a child node, and add in a sprite. Then we can go ahead and drag in our strange door closed as a texture here. Now this is probably a bit too big. So if we grab this entire segment here, and let's turn on the ghost thing so it doesn't do that. We can drag this over here and you can see that it is massively too large. If we kind of put it in the center of that area, it's definitely too big. So let's go ahead and grab that sprite. Let's rotate the sprite 90 degrees. So we'll rotate it and I want it to be -90. And we will go ahead and scale this door down some. So we're going to see, yeah, that seems like that'll work. So let's grab this sprite. Let's unturn on this, grab the sprite, move it up so it now covers this little door here. And we are going to go ahead and change our collision shape to be slightly larger than the actual door itself, like that. So now the player can't run past the door. Simple enough. Now, what we can do is we need an area 2D to tell the door if the player's walked up to the door, right? So we can right click the door, add in a child node, and add in an area 2D. So we'll go ahead and add that in. Then we're going to go ahead and right click that and add in another child node and add in a collision shape like we did last time. Go in here and add in a rectangular shape. And we'll go ahead and make that fairly large so the player can just walk up to it from pretty much anywhere. And that should work pretty well. So we'll put that like that. Perfect. So now the player can walk up to this door. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and right click the door and we are going to go ahead and save branch as scene. We're going to call that door.tscn. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. And then we will go and open up our door project. Now, this should probably be zeroed out. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and zero that out. There we are. And we will go ahead and right click our door and attach a script. We're going to go ahead and attach a door script. We're just going to call it door. So go ahead and hit create. And again, Visual Studio is just not happy with me. I'm going to have to figure this out after this tutorial. So we'll go ahead and open up that door script right here. And we need to solve a few things. So we need to determine if the player walks up to us, we need to determine if that string is, or if that key is valid, right? Because they might have a key, but it might be the wrong key. So what we can do is we can just come up here and say, hey, public string door key. And we'll say that that's going to be the name of the key that goes to this door. So if we go ahead and hit enter and we export that, so when we put doors in our scene, we can actually just name them and then it just makes sense, right? So from here, we need to determine when the player collides with this door, it needs to check if the player has that key, right? So what we're going to do is we'll go into our door here. We'll go to our area 2D and we'll go ahead and connect that signal. So we'll say, hey, on body enter, go ahead and connect to our door. And I'm going to grab this and connect it. And then if we go back into our project, we're going to say, hey, when the player enters, right, So public void on area 2D body enter object, whoops, not that. Object body. We're going to check, hey, is the body a player? Because we don't necessarily want to run this check if the body's not a player. Because what if a slime runs into the door, right? And the player's halfway across the map, suddenly it unlocks the door because the player picked up the key. Well, that wouldn't be great, right? We don't want that. We're going to say, hey, does the player have the key that we're looking for? Now, this little bit of code is going to be pretty complicated. So I'm not going to lie, guys. Just, we'll walk through it and I'll explain it as best as I can. But we're going to be doing a bunch of link-like coding. So it's going to be kind of funky. So we're going to say, hey, if game manager.player, right? So we have our player dot keys dot find all. So we're going to find that key in our player's key list. And we're going to say find all. And what happens with find all is it creates a variable. In our case, I'm going to say P. Right, so we created a variable P for each key that comes in. So what's going to happen is it's going to grab a key, and that key is going to be P, or we could call it K. It doesn't really matter. I guess K would probably be better. So we'll say K, right? And then we're going to do an arrow operator saying, with that K, do this, right? So K dot door to open is equal to door key dot count does not equal 0. So what that's going to do is it's going to say, okay, I need you to run through here, find all the keys that have the same name as our door key. If you find one, right, if it's greater than 0, then I need you to grab that key. Right, so game manager.player.keys dot find x equals pointer, right? X dot door to open dot contains door key, and we're going to pull back that key. So what we're saying is, hey, if we have any amount of keys that match the thing we're looking for, then let's go ahead and pull that door key. And then we need to remove that door key. So game manager.player.keys.remove our key, right? So K. Then we need to delete our key. K.QFree. Okay. So we're saying effectively find a list of keys, grab that one key out of that list, and then remove that key, and then delete the key from the scene. And then we're going to say gd.print open door. All right. I know that was a lot. So from here, we're going to say else. We want to say gd.print need key. All right, so if we come over here and we save our door scene and we hit play and we go ahead and we run over to that door. So let's run over to that door. Oh, I'm off at my own game. Okay. Oh, our door is not here. So our door isn't here. So I'm guessing, yeah, it got zeroed out because I zeroed it out. So let's go ahead and move it. So let's go ahead and move it over here. We'll just drag it over. There we are. And we'll go ahead and hit play and let's try that again because I zeroed out my stuff and I made a mistake. So there we are. I'm terrible at my own game again. I keep getting hit by that guy. If I run up to it, you can see that it says, hey, you need a key. I don't know if you guys caught that before this started sprawling through, but if we scroll up, we should probably get rid of this log. You can see it says, hey, you need a key right here. So that's good. So what we can do now is let's go and fetch our key. So now we got our key. Let's come over here. And it crashed. Oh no. What did we get? Unhandled exception, object not set instance to an object. Normally I can double click this, but since I can't, it's going to be on line 27. I know that, and I'm pointing at it with my finger, but right here, you can see that it says CS27. That means that it's an issue on line 27. So we're going to go over there and take a look. On line 27, it's attempting to fetch that key of door that contains door key. Oh, you know what I think? Did I forget? Yeah, this is null. Okay. So let's just call this blue door, right? It's the blue door. And then we'll come over here to our key. Let's call this the blue key, right? Let's go ahead and hit play. Let's try that now. Oh, I'm bad at my own game. Goodness. I'm very bad at my own game. Also goodness. Come on. There we are. So now we'll come over here. And you can see it deleted our key, which is good. And if I scroll up in our output, open door. So we successfully made our door work, right? So that's good. So basically, we now have everything working. But we need to go into our door and move our door out of the way, right? So we'll go ahead and go into our door. And let's go ahead and right click it and add in a child node and add in an animation player node here. And we're going to go ahead and add in a new animation and call it open door. And what we'll do is we will go ahead and click on our, let's see, I actually want, I'm going to go ahead and add in a child node, node 2D, and I'm going to go ahead and grab these two and drag them under my node 2D. I think this is still hooked, correct? Well, I'm going to disconnect it just in case and reconnect it. Just in case, I don't know if that's going to be a problem, but I want to make sure. And then I'm going to go ahead and animate our node 2D here. So I'm going to go ahead and go transform and lock a keyframe, use Bezier curves. Yes, I want to use my Bezier curves. And we'll go ahead and pull this over here and we'll move this up. Whoops. Is my, oh, my sprite's not under there. That would help. All right. So, sprite. I like my sprite at the top. So what we'll do is we'll move this here and we'll go ahead and drag this up. Something like, I don't know, we'll say minus 30, maybe. Let's go ahead and lock a keyframe there so you can see it's going to just go up. Simple enough. And let's go ahead and check out our player test scene, see if that's going to work. There we go. And we can see, yeah, I think that'll work. That'll give us enough space for the player to be able to move. So that's perfect. So we'll go ahead and take that. Okay. We'll do this, Control S, and that'll bring this back down. And you'll notice that this isn't great, right? You can see how it's kind of rendering above our level here. We can either drag this up, right, and put it underneath our tile map, which I believe we can just kind of drag this up and place it right here. And now it's behind our tile map. Or we can actually go into our Z index and change this to -1. So that way, no matter what, even if it's down here like it was, it's underneath the level. So that's just something to keep in mind, by the way, is this Z index is super useful. So you can see 0, and then if I bring that back down to -1, it goes behind. So that's perfect. Now, what we can do is we can go ahead and open up our controller here. We can go over to our door. We can come down here and say, instead of open door, we can just say get node animation player. And we can just go ahead and grab our animation player. So, and then we can say dot play. And I believe we named it open door. Simple enough. So quote open door. There we go. So it's going to go ahead and open up our door. So now if we hit play, we can run over there. And I'm going to get hit because I'm awful at my own game. There we are. And you can come over here. And it says I need a key because I completely forgot my key. So I'm probably going to die here. And then I'm going to look like a fool. All right. Oh, goodness. Oy. We'll do that. We'll dash over here. We'll jump, dash, dodge. And you can see now the gate is open. Simple enough. So that's pretty much it. So the nice thing about this is the key got deleted. It's gone. The player doesn't have the key as far as we can tell. And we can go ahead and open doors. And the nice thing about this is if I were to say, come into my player test scene, let's duplicate this door and let's just move it, I don't know, over here somewhere. Let's say that there's a door here for whatever reason, right? So let's just put a door, I don't know, over here, right? And we change this from blue to green, right? And then we hit play. And we run over here and we dash. Ah, goodness. I'm just so bad at this game. All right. We dash and land on here and we jump down here. You can see it doesn't fetch. It doesn't open our door. See? Because we have the wrong key. It won't care. So that's something to keep in mind is it actually works. Like it works as intended, which is awesome. So that's pretty much it. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And hey, you know, if you dislike this video, go ahead and hit that dislike button because I am here to make content for you. Now, this video was a viewer suggested tutorial, as with all of my videos. So if you guys have any suggestions, throw them in the comments below and I'm more than happy to get to them. It might take some time because the board has gotten pretty full, but I will get to them. But that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you all next time. Thanks.